All right, everyone, welcome. If you've got a big exam on cognitive development just around the corner, then you have come to the perfect place. Think of this as your personal, high-energy review session, designed to make sure all these key theories really stick so you can walk into that test feeling confident. So why are we even talking about this stuff? Because it's not just some abstract theory in a textbook. It's super practical. I mean, this little story shows how knowing these theories can literally save your glasses from a curious baby. The dad in this story knew his Piaget. He knew that for a really young infant, out of sight is, well, truly out of mind. And that whole experience brings up a really big question, right? Why do babies do that? Are they just not interested anymore? Do they lack the motor skills to search? Or is their mind working in a fundamentally different way than ours? To answer that, you need a framework. You need these theories.
Okay, so here's our game plan for this review. We're going to start with the absolute pillar of the field, Piaget. Then we'll pivot to the big social shift with Vygotsky. After that, we'll quickly run through 3 other modern perspectives you should know. And we'll wrap it all up with the ultimate comparison chart, your study guide basically, to tie it all together. Let's do this. First up, the giant himself, Jean Piaget. His big and, I mean, revolutionary idea was that kids aren't just these passive little sponges soaking up information. Nope. He saw them as little scientists, actively exploring and trying to make sense of their world from the second they're born. This whole idea is called a constructivist approach. Piaget believed that kids are mentally active from birth. They have this built-in motivation to learn. They don't need stickers or rewards. The simple act of figuring something out is the reward. Just like a scientist in a lab, they're constantly testing their ideas about how everything works. So, how exactly do they construct all this knowledge? Well, the first tool in their toolkit is assimilation. This is when a child tries to fit a new experience into a mental box they already have. The classic example is just hilarious. A toddler sees a guy with frizzy hair on the sides and a bald top and starts yelling, "Clown, clown," because, in his little world, that's what a clown looks like. It's funny, but it's also his brain learning in real time. But what happens when that mental box doesn't quite fit the new information? Well, that's where accommodation comes in. The dad explains, "No, honey, he's not a clown. He's not wearing a costume or doing silly tricks." So the toddler has to adjust his clown concept. He has to improve his understanding. That mental box gets reshaped by this new experience. And the engine that drives this entire learning process? Piaget called it equilibration. It's basically a 3-step cycle. First, you're in a happy state of equilibrium. Your theories about the world are working just fine. Then, boom, you see something that doesn't fit. That's disequilibrium. You're confused. Finally, you use accommodation to figure it out, reaching a new, more stable, and more accurate equilibrium. That cycle, right there, is the heart of cognitive growth. Now, this whole equilibration process leads to Piaget's most famous and, let's be honest, most debated idea, that kids develop in 4 distinct stages. He argued these weren't gradual changes. They were massive, discontinuous leaps. A kid in the pre-operational stage doesn't just know less than a kid in the concrete operational stage. They actually think in a completely, qualitatively different way. Okay, let's switch gears. While Piaget was busy focusing on the child as this little independent scientist, his contemporary, Lev Vygotsky, came along with a radically different idea. What if the child is really a social learner? And this slide right here lays out the core difference you need to know for your exam. It's a game changer. For Piaget, the child is a lone explorer. But for Vygotsky, the child is more like an apprentice, learning by collaborating with people who know more than them. For him, development isn't an individual journey at all. It's a deeply social one. Vygotsky's theory really boils down to a few key ideas. Think about a parent helping their kid with a tough puzzle. That's guided participation. The way they give little hints without just solving it for them, that's social scaffolding. It's like temporary training wheels for the brain that you take off once the kid gets it. And all the stuff they use to learn, language, the puzzle itself, maybe even an iPad, those are the cultural tools that literally shape how they think. This is so cool. This slide shows how that social guidance actually becomes a part of the child's own mind. At first, a parent's voice directs their actions. Put the blue piece there. Then the child starts doing it themselves, talking themselves through it out loud. That's what Vygotsky called private speech. And eventually, that voice goes quiet, it goes internal, and it becomes their inner monologue. For Vygotsky, thought is basically just internalized speech. So we have Piaget's lone scientist and Vygotsky's social apprentice. But the story doesn't stop there. Now, let's really quickly cover 3 other major theories that have built on and, in some cases, challenged these 2 giants.
This quote is a fantastic way to introduce information processing theories. At first glance, it sounds like total nonsense, right? But if you actually break it down, it's this incredibly complex chain of logical steps. To ride my bike, I need my shoes. To put on my shoes, I need my socks. My socks are in the dryer, and on and on. The big metaphor for this theory is that the mind is kind of like a computer. Development isn't about jumping through stages, it's a continuous process of upgrading your hardware and your software. Your working memory, your RAM, gets bigger, your processing speed gets faster, and you learn better strategies, better algorithms for solving problems. Okay, next up, core knowledge theories. Now, these folks argue that we are not born as blank slates. Not even close. Instead, they say we come into the world with a kind of preloaded software, innate, built-in knowledge in areas that were just absolutely critical for our evolutionary survival. And what kind of preloaded knowledge are we talking about? Well, things like an intuitive grasp of physics, a basic sense of numbers, a special ability to learn language, and a powerful built-in instinct to pay attention to human faces. These are areas where even tiny infants show a shocking level of understanding, way earlier than you'd expect. And finally, we have dynamic systems theories, which offer this really fascinating idea. Thinking is for doing. See, unlike other theories that kind of separate thought from action, these guys argue you can't untangle them. They see development as a self-organizing process where change is constantly happening, moment to moment, based on what a child is doing. The best example? The Velcro mitten study. They gave infants who couldn't grasp yet these special mittens that let them stick to toys. And guess what? Their understanding of those objects and their motivation to explore just exploded. For this theory, action drives thought. Okay, deep breath. We have covered a ton of ground. So, the most important part for your exam is being able to compare and contrast all these different viewpoints. And this last section is exactly that. It's your ultimate cheat sheet. And this table just lays it all out perfectly. Seriously, this is a great moment to pause and just soak this in. Look at how only Piaget really pushed for those big, discontinuous stages. See how core knowledge theory puts the most emphasis on nature, on what we're born with? And check out all the different engines of change, from Piaget's equilibration to Vygotsky's social scaffolding, to the computer-like upgrades of information processing. So let's bring it full circle, right back to that baby and the glasses. After all this, which theory do you think best explains why hiding the glasses worked? Was the baby stuck in a specific Piagetian stage? Did he just have a memory processing limitation? Or did he just need a little social guidance not to grab things? The truth is, there's no single right answer, and honestly, that's what makes this all so interesting. Okay, that's a wrap. Good luck with your exam.